There was something very wrong with the small back bedroom in William Adams' new home. A terrible, loathsome thing lurked in the shadows. His children and his dog knew immediately that there was something wrong with that space. He should have listened.
I'm Alan Brill. Welcome to Brilliant, a podcast from the mind of Brill. Warning, it gets dark in here.
On a small street in Detroit sits a small, unassuming gray frame house. In the back of the house is a tiny room, large enough only for a bed and a built in closet. It was just a tiny room. There was nothing about it physically that betrayed that within its walls lurked a malevolent entity, a terrible, loathsome thing. When William Adams and his family moved, right away his children and dog seemed to sense something was wrong about that space. But, as usually happens, their feelings went unheeded. Bill worked nights, and because of its size and the fact that it separated from the rest of the house, Bill would often sleep in it when he got home from his midnight shift at the Cadillac plant. As, he had trouble sleeping during the day. It's, night shift thing. And it wasn't long before he started to be plagued with these intense nightmares. He told a reporter from the Detroit Free Press, "I started having the most terrible nightmares you can imagine. They'd leave me limp from fear because they were so real. I'd find myself sitting in the bed screaming until my throat was sore. One of the dreams was when I found myself opening a door and a mutilated body fell out." Bill began losing so much sleep that he told his wife he's about ready to see a psychiatrist. And he began, sleeping in the bedroom, and he realized that he only had the nightmares when he slept in that small back bedroom, when he slept in what he called, quote, "in that terrible room," end quote. Now, Bill's grandmother came to visit from Georgia in August of 1962, and they put her up in the back bedroom. They assumed that Bill's terrible reactions was a personal reaction to it. And when she came to the breakfast table the next morning, looking pale and visibly shaken, she told them, quote, "There are terrible sounds in that room. All night long I thought someone was trying to break in. I refused to sleep in that room again," end quote. She was so affected by her one night spent in that small room that she returned to Georgia early and cut short her visit. Bill and his wife Lillian realized there was something very wrong with that room. They started to recall things that seemed like nothing at the time, but looking back on it had a certain significance. Their terrier refused to enter the room at all, and all of their 5 children seemed to avoid it. Shirley Patterson, an old friend from Georgia, arrived on October 27th to spend a few days with William Adams and his family. He was a matter-of-fact, no-nonsense kind of guy, and Bill and Lillian decided to use him as a test subject. Shirley said, quote, "I didn't know anything about the room. There's no reason for me to suspect anything, no reason to be afraid. It seems I was in the bed for a few minutes. I don't know whether I was asleep or not. I was facing the wall, and I felt something turn me over. Don't ask me to describe the feeling. All I know is that it rolled me over, and then I saw it standing outside the bedroom door. At first I thought it was Lillian, but I started to tremble. It was a woman with long hair, and she had her back to me looking into the kitchen. She was wearing a short fur coat and a kind of blue dress," end quote. He screamed. He screamed as loud as he could and rushed the woman. As he drew near, every light in the house went out. He stumbled around in the dark for a couple of moments until the lights suddenly came back on. He met Lillian in the kitchen. Bill had already left for work, and tried to tell her what he saw, but he was interrupted by a mournful, half-human, half-animal sound. A sound so terrifying it rendered them both speechless. Lillian Adams recalled, quote, "It was like nothing I'd heard before, and there was an awful smell that made both of us sick. It was coming from the room where we heard the moaning," end quote. A trap door in the floor that led to the basement raised itself into the air and slammed back down. This broke the spell, and they called the police. The police came and searched the house from basement to attic. They found nothing. His wife and friend were waiting up for Bill when he got home, and they told him about what had just gone on during the night before. Bill said later, "I'm not the kind of guy who believes in ghosts. At least I didn't then. I'm a grown man with a family. I've been in the Army. I just couldn't convince myself there's anything to it. I had to try again and see what happened." End quote. Around 7:30 that night, he lay down in bed, the terrible little room. He had lain there for quite a while when he thought he heard his wife moving around the room. He told her she should leave because there might not be any activity if both of them were in the room at the same time. When she didn't answer him, he said, quote, "I turned over to look, and the face was inches away from me. It was the most horrible thing I had ever seen. The eyes stared past me, and the mouth moved to talk, but only a hissing noise came out, and a terrible stench." End quote. He ran screaming from the room, tearing out handfuls of his hair from his head. Shirley tried to hold him, but he was berserk, fighting off his friend. Shirley and Lillian were finally able to throw a blanket over him and subdue him, and after about an hour, he regained his senses. The horrid stench permeated the house. They grabbed the kids and fled to the neighbor's house for the night, and the next day they moved in with Lillian's folks in Dearborn, Michigan. Lillian's brother, Leo Snocki, and her sister Vicky came to the house one night to see for themselves if there's anything to Bill's story of a horrible hag. Vicky said, quote, "I stood out in the kitchen, and Leo said he was going to lie down in the bed for 10 minutes in the dark. A few minutes later, I heard this awful groan come from the back room. It was Leo. I've never heard him make a sound like that before. Then he came rushing through the door into the kitchen with the most horrible look on his face, like he was scared out of his mind. I asked him what he saw, but he wouldn't tell me anything." Leo Sinecki refuses to disclose what he saw that night. The landlady never allowed any paranormal investigations on the property, and good old Leo, he never said what he saw that night. Let's dig into it a little bit. Like, one of the things I wonder is whenever Bill was talking about his nightmares, he said one of them was that he opened the door and a mutilated body fell out. And the way he said it, I felt like this was a recurring one. Like this was one that repeated itself, one of a few of the nightmares that did. Or it could have been a one-off, I don't know. But I wonder if it's a recurring nightmare, if maybe that was the spirit that was haunting them, that maybe somebody was killed and mutilated in that room. And that's another thing. This is one of those hauntings that is specific to a tiny room. That's fairly unusual, and I wonder what it is that confines it to that one space. I wish they would have allowed some investigations there, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, those two of the things that jumped out to me was the very confined location, and the whole nightmare thing was that who was haunting the joint was somebody mutilated in that room, in that space. And maybe in the basement, that's why the trap door was open and slamming shut. I don't know that they ever searched it, ever looked. And I guess it's the same entity, just the guy seen it from behind and didn't realize how ugly the woman was. Shirley, the family friend. And whenever Bill saw it later that night or the next night, however you want to look at it, and how ugly was this entity that he would run screaming, pulling the hair from his head, and that it said it took him almost an hour to calm him down from his hysterics. I mean, I think maybe that's a little exaggerated, but I wasn't there. I don't know, but I mean, something so horrible it scares you leaves you hysterical for a full hour. Man, something bad was in that room, in that one specific room. So there you go, Motor City Malevolence, and you got this story sourced out of Brad Steiger's Things That Go Bump in the Night. It is called The Horrible Hag of Detroit in this book, and I ordered this through Fate magazine. I'm not sure you can find it on Amazon, but Fate's like the longest continuous running magazine dealing with 40 issues, and they do good work. So, go through the website, check them out. Brett Steiger, everything, he takes up half a bookcase himself with his books. He's fantastic. Always a lot of fun, very entertaining. Very informative, but at the end of the day, this stuff should be fun, and his stories are. And this, again, things that go bump in the night. Check it out if you can. And yep, that does it for this week, guys. Thanks for stopping by the Black Barn.